Electrocast.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you.
I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host Iris and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley. And today we're discussing a movie from 2012, a Danish film, Jagten, which translates directly as Kids Are Terrible People.
Stop. The official first discussion of Teacher Month here at Or Whatever Movies.
A soft opening for Teacher Month, but not exactly what I would call a teacher movie. Or it explores a different side of teachers, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
My alternate title for this movie was going to be in the intro, F Them Kids. But I can't say that because this movie is about the opposite of effing them kids.
Oh, opposite of effing them kids.
Yep.
Got it.
Everyone's like, trigger warning. The Hunt 2012 is a tough watch and be prepared for SA, sexual assault on minors or whatever. It never happens.
But we get wiener within the first 5 minutes.
We do get wiener. There is assault on minors in this movie. And that's why I said it was called Kids Are Terrible People, because the worst assault is what Marcus perpetrates on Clara when he spits in her face. That's like biological assault. And
biological warfare between minors.
If Clara is going to be traumatized, it's going to be because Marcus spit in her face and screamed at her and tried to grab her, or because her brothers showed her dong porn.
If I read the subtitles right, he also called her the equivalent of a Danish bitch.
And then there was the assault on Marcus by Sven, or whoever the big dude in the sweater was, who smacked him down, quite literally, onto the ground after he smacked him.
That dude was huge.
Yeah.
Was he in the last scene, in the hunting retreat scene?
Yes, I believe he was. And that jump forward is something that people kind of question. Okay, so we have to get it into a place where maybe his guard is down a little bit, but the embracing of both Lucas and Marcus long after the fact, the exchange between Lucas and Clara, a little bit too pat. Like, do you think he ever would have gotten back to that place?
Of complete comfort and acceptance?
Not only with the parents or whatever, but with Clara. Like, didn't you feel the tension? Like, he never once looked over his shoulder to see where is everybody else when Clara and I have this confrontation at the top of the stairs.
Yep. You're basically accelerating my point about this movie, that nothing happens because, as illustrated by Lucas, obviously not learning from that whole traumatic experience. There's all this symbolism with crossing of lines between Lucas and Clara. Clara?
Sure.
But absolutely, just like early on, Lucas should have been like, hey, why don't I go get your dad to help you across this heavily lined floor? Or, hey, how about I make sure another adult is present and I get their visual acknowledgement before I come over and grab you and hold you by the butt? That whole moment between the two of them illustrates that either he didn't learn anything, that he stubbornly refuses to acknowledge some kind of protocol between an adult and a child, or he simply wants to defy it.
On any of those counts, questionable decision-making or logical processes by Lucas, wouldn't you say?
Lucas has a lot of questionable behavior. Is he to blame? How much of it is cultural is what I question.
The line is blurred from the very start because before he was ever in preschool with Clara, Clara is the daughter of his bestie, and that makes for super awkward. But it doesn't. It's so not awkward, their dynamic, their relationship from the start, that she is hopelessly in love with him, that it's totally okay. He does all the right stuff. He's a good dude. You see him jump in to save his dude with the wiener out, his friend who goes into the water. He goes in fully clothed to rescue him because he's drunk. He says, let me just call your dad to make sure. You're fighting right now. Do you know where your child is? Well, she's out on the street here with me. And he's like, yeah, go ahead and take her to school. He's such a part.
So not a single iota of reservation. Sure, take her. I think he literally hung up.
Yeah. When Lucas walks into Theo's house, he goes into the cupboard, takes out a mug. He's perfectly at home because they've known each other their entire lives.
Exactly. And likewise, at the end, when Theo enters Lucas's house while Lucas is asleep, brings him dinner, has the tray and the dishes, has the whole meal laid out. Obviously, he was able to navigate his kitchen quietly without even waking up Lucas.
Yeah. We see that Lucas is a good guy. He's maybe a little bit down on his luck, ended up at a kindergarten where it does seem strange, like a male kindergarten teacher I'm not sure is really a thing. Have you ever heard of such a thing in American society in the last few decades?
Was he a teacher as much as he was an aide? He kind of seemed para-teacher-ish, like the dishwasher girlfriend.
Interesting. But he ended up there through not his ideal circumstances. And all that seemed kind of telling. He is accused of something that did not actually happen, as opposed to us not seeing it happen on screen. And I don't think there was any doubt about whether or not he really did anything bad.
You're talking about him being a good guy. He's discreet when the little boy is going potty. He asks if he can wipe himself before assuming that he's supposed to go in there and do it. Other than not reporting the kiss, I think he otherwise handles the Clara situation appropriately. Give this heart that you made me to your mom. Do not kiss adults on the mouth unless they are your mom or your dad. The filmmakers go through the necessary steps. They feed us the necessary information to let us know this is a pretty normal, upstanding dude. Maybe he's in a bit of a transitional time in his life and trying to figure things out. But overall, a good guy, a good friend, a good teacher, and someone who is kind of minding their own business and then gets the business of the entire town thrust upon him.
Would a woman in that position have asked for permission to come and wipe that kid's bottom? Would she have said a kiss on the lips is completely inappropriate if it was to a female teacher from a girl being affectionate? Or was he going the extra step? It seemed like he was aware of his position as a male authority figure, maybe a step more than was even necessary. And that was to help us solidify in our minds his position as a decent human being.
So you're saying that he appeared to behave with an abundance of caution, even if he wasn't maybe following the right protocol in terms of reporting?
Yeah, but just in his life, he seemed to be a careful, methodical, purposeful person who was never really out of control, as it seemed like his mates were a lot of the time.
Yeah, I was wondering about Gerda's confrontation because I mistook her kind of reticence to address the issue directly as her trying to assess his guilt, but it was really her inability to actually discuss the subject matter. I mean, when they got graphic, when the child psychologist or whatever got graphic, she literally threw up in the trash can. This woman was ill-equipped to handle the situation. Because of everyone's inability to do this right, I came up with the genre or the format for this film. It is the anti-procedural because, boy, these people cannot follow procedure.
Look, and of course, we're not taking this movie lightly, even though no sexual assault on kids actually happens. It's a very serious subject matter. Thomas Vinterberg and Mads Mikkelsen, they talked about how for every one of these cases and there are a number of people who are falsely accused of pedophilia or child molestation, there are 100 kids that are actually abused. This is not a political statement. This isn't like standing with the accused or anything like that. This is simply an exploration of an interesting topic, which I think makes for personally one of my favorite kind of movies, the kind of movies that invite discussion and shake you up a little bit to help you think outside the box, and not being gratuitously, oh, this is a movie about child abuse. And you're like, oh, I don't want to watch that. But I'm going to argue it's actually kind of helpful to examine the prejudices while not have to deal with the horrific things on screen. This is a movie that thematically, gives you a heavy feeling in your stomach, but not so terrible that the sneak couldn't stomach watching it.
I don't know. I don't think this would work with her just because of the pure tension that the filmmakers maintain throughout the entire film.
And you have a very different perspective, I think, than I would, being a mom of Clara-ish age kids.
Yeah, literally a kindergartner. It is not necessarily a child abuse movie, but it kind of begs the question, what is this anti-procedural? Is it a commentary on cancel culture? Is this a call to equitable, procedure-driven judgment? Is this a call for us to just kind of be a little bit more level-headed when we approach complex situations? What is the message of this movie?
Well, we talked about I'm Still Here, Academy Awards Best Foreign Language Film. Would you say that movie was a political movie?
That's an interesting question. I think there's definitely the political backdrop. But no, it's more about a woman's journey to reinvent herself amidst a family tragedy.
Right. Any more than this is really about a teacher. But what it came to be about, as far as I was concerned, was a sort of cultural identity. Now, this movie isn't typical of all Danish lifestyles, but I think it is typical of a very specific Danish lifestyle. Thomas Vinterberg said they talked about setting this movie in America and quickly found that no one was willing to finance a movie about this in America. So it's set in small town Denmark where rules are different. And one of the questions that was put out often was, why wouldn't Lucas more aggressively defend himself? Why wouldn't he bring up the heart and say, this is what happened? And the answer was, it's different in America. Kids can be left alone at home. It's legal. It's more trusting. It's safer. And this kind of thing, this scandal that rocks a tiny Danish town, is almost unthinkable. No one is prepared. Everybody knows each other. They all grew up together. Everyone trusts everyone else with their kids. It's not even a question until the specter is raised of impropriety, abuse, of a monster in their midst. And then everyone loses their bloody minds. There's no plan for this. So when I was talking about Danish identity, it's like, is that how we would be? And Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Lucas, talked about his reaction being more civilized. He is a stubborn man who doesn't understand that his life effectively is over when the accusations become widely known. He assumes that it will be taken care of because he is innocent, and he is going to wait it out because he's not going to let something like this destroy his life. Kelly's question at the end is, why wouldn't he just move away? And it's because he doesn't think the way that we think.
Also, they revealed at his son's hunting party that their family had been there for generations, that Lucas's father had hunted and missed deers in those woods. I thought that was an important piece of information because I asked myself the same thing. Why don't you just pick up and leave? Like, you're done. You will be forever stigmatized in this town. Just go. But this was his home. This was his home for generations. And you can't just leave. Where do you go?
I mean, literally anywhere. But in your mind, there is nowhere else. His girlfriend wasn't Danish, right? Or was she?
I don't think so.
Yeah. What I felt initially was he doesn't react as I would react. Her response when he says, look, I got to tell you what's going on. These are the allegations. She outright laughs at him. Did you read it as supportive dismissal, or was she outright diminishing his emotional response? Was she like, you're being ridiculous? The laugh to me felt very personal. And I wondered if some of those things, from her to him, from them to me, were sort of lost in translation in a way. There's also this thing that I've found about Danish people, and I once saw it on a meme. Did you know in Denmark, a woman who is unmarried at the age of 25 gets cinnamon thrown on her? And apparently it's for guys too. If a young person reaches age 25 and is not married, there's a ritual where they sit him in a chair or tie him to a light pole or something and douse them in aggressive, expensive amounts of cinnamon, and sometimes throw pepper in there.
To what end? Or is this symbolic?
It's just like, hey, this is like a shaming or a hazing or whatever. Get your act together. Don't be crazy or whatever. A little bit like Bridget Jones facing spinsterhood at the age of 30, where everyone's like, when are you going to get married, Bridget? What's wrong with you? This idea that Danish people at 25, there's something wrong with them if they're not married.
Yeah, maybe they just want to spice them up a little bit.
The blurbs talked about Mads Mikkelsen's Lucas being a sad, lonely man, living this solitary existence and working at a kindergarten, not his ideal job, whose life is thrown into upheaval. I'm wondering if Lucas was put into this situation where they showed the woman pursuing him and the sex with the woman to show that he's not some freak who could also be a pervert or a child molester. Kind of how many pains did Thomas Vinterberg and crew go to demonstrate that Lucas was a normal guy who just happened to be at a down point in his life? You know what I mean? He was unlucky maybe, but that doesn't mean that he was a perv.
Yeah, they're covering most of the bases here, right? They show that he's a healthy, functioning sexual adult. Other than pushing his girlfriend out the door, is otherwise pretty respectful to his girlfriend, that even if his relationship with his son's mother went south, he wants to maintain a healthy relationship with his son. And then all the other things we covered that suggest this guy's a pretty good guy. I was definitely worried that at some point there was going to be this twist where we find out that he actually did do something, and I was really, really hoping that the movie did not go that direction, and it did not. But yeah, they do. They go through great pains, and I think it's necessary for us to truly be on Lucas's side.
Right. So for American audiences or for Danish audiences is what I'm getting at. Is there a tooth buried in the sand in I'm still here kind of thing that we don't quite understand? Look, I get it. If you're in a small town thing and people are uncomfortable with you, being a child molester who's buying your pork chops or whatever, then would be like, hey, we don't want your kind here. But Marcus, the son? Is it impossible to consider that the son of someone accused of a crime also would be shunned?
I think there's a mix, and I think Marcus also isn't helping himself with his behavior. What's your question?
That's kind of it. Well, it's leading to this idea that culturally speaking, how this crime, these allegations would be perceived and treated differently. Maybe it's also just a small town thing, but I agree. In the case of Marcus, this is why I said that this movie should be called Kids Are Terrible People. I don't mean Clara. She got confused. She lost track. She never understood what the problem was in the first place. The actress never understood what the problem. They said, look,
yeah,
you lied about him committing a crime. They didn't say what it was. They didn't actually show her pornography on a phone.
Nope. I was thinking about it. They may have even ADR'd the kids' dialogue when they were showing her what was supposed to be porn.
Yeah, she did say the word penis or whatever. I wonder if that was CG spit on her cheek. I don't think she was in the scenes when the so-called expert, the therapist or whatever, was asking her to clarify the allegations. Clarify, get it? Anyway, Kelly took real issue with that. She's like, that's a little bit leading, isn't it? When he's like, hey, did white stuff come out of this penis that you saw?
What?
And here's the horrible thing. That conversation was taken from an actual transcript of an actual child who was being interviewed. It's all very serious, and there is a dynamic being set up here. Who is in the wrong? If he absolutely didn't do it, is Theo's wife the bad guy? In your estimation, did Butcher Man deserve a headbutt to the beak?
Boy, that put him down. Lucas got beat down and then got back up. Butcher guy, like, he was floored by that headbutt. Did he deserve it? I mean, those were the only real crimes of this film. The assault against Lucas and the assault against the butcher, right? That's what you call the police over. Again, not to diminish the seriousness of a sexual abuse allegation. But I think what the question is here is a child ever to blame? Ever.
Are we talking about Clara Child or Marcus Child?
Clara Child. Is she at fault for any of this? Or is it all the adults doing, including Brune and Theo and Lucas and, to a certain extent, Marcus?
It's the toughest question because they believed her implicitly. I mean, they vetted her responses and stuff, but they ultimately came to believe her wholeheartedly so that even when she made multiple confessions, maybe not in the case of her dad, Theo, but at first they made nothing but justifications for why she might be confused. We believe you. This happened. His penis was like a rod and white stuff came out of it. And then when she's like, no, I just said a dumb thing. They're like, oh, but you don't remember it, baby. And you have to understand that you might have blocked out the trauma. And she's like, oh, okay. The parents got so ahead of her, it made me frustrated, but that's only because I have the perspective of that nobody else, none of the characters had the full perspective in this movie that the viewer did.
To a certain extent, you know when a kid is lying. I know when Aurelia has not brushed her teeth. She comes up in the morning, she's doing her thing. I'm like, you brush your teeth? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, what if I go touch your toothbrush? Will it be wet? And she's like, I'll go do it.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, mm-hmm. And kids do. They lie. But also, they feel bad about adults getting upset or adults getting into trouble because there is enough emotionality there for a child to not want someone to get in trouble, even if they are a perpetrator of a crime against them. It's so incredibly delicate, which is why this feels like, of all instances, the time to follow procedure and to conduct an interview like that psychologist did with the utmost caution and precision, which they kind of unfortunately don't do.
But following the procedure is what condemned him. And Mads Mikkelsen talked about his approach to this role was that he felt helpless. I knew I didn't have anyone I could hit. I can't direct my anger anywhere because you can't blame Clara. As frustrated as I was with the kid, I didn't view her as the villain of this movie. If anything, Marcus was the villain because he did more damage to his dad's case than anybody. Spitting on Clara, by punching the dude, by making a scene, by screaming and stuff. He almost got them both killed when... What's my biggest peeve in a movie?
The killing of a dog?
It's the dog. And Marcus went off and was going to get himself killed along with the dog, along with his dad, who was just trying to haul him back into the house. But the killing of the dog is an unforgivable act. And the fact that the dog wasn't killed by Clara, the fact that the dog wasn't killed by Lucas, who was accused of these crimes, somebody killed that dog. And that is the bad guy in this movie, who threw a rock through the window, which was a giant rock, like a head-sized rock, and who took a shot at him at the end. It couldn't have been Theo. Theo was the one who reached out to tell him that he came to believe what he was saying the whole time. He didn't see the tick in his eyes that proved to him that he was lying. It wasn't the wife. Who was it that threw the rock through the window, that killed the dog, that took a shot? Because it was definitely a dude who was hunting out there who ran away with the gun at the end.
I think that Marcus's dysregulation was important because I parallel that with Theo's son's dysregulation, and he's my primary suspect for the shot at the end. Whoever the culprit was wanted to be seen. They stuck around. And who else would be kind of so dysregulated and so confused? Afraid and confused were the primary symptoms that led to the worst behavior in this movie. Who would be the most afraid and confused after the fact other than Theo's son? And that's why I feel like Marcus's behavior was kind of important to maybe set up how Clara's brother would feel about this, right? We had that very emotional scene where he's watching her decorate the Christmas village or whatever and crying. Like, he's having a really hard time with this and possibly also processing his guilt. that he had exposed her to pornography. I think he's our number one suspect.
It's not okay. There's not really an instance where killing someone else's dog is an effective means of hurting your target.
Is that the function that Fanny serves in this story?
Which is what specifically?
That there's no instance where you harm an innocent being.
Murderers are ill people too, who for some reason they get their rocks off by harming or killing other people. And those people do not deserve to be in society. And the fact that they feel bad about it or have guilt in a lot of cases, I'm sure, it doesn't make it okay. And it doesn't mean that people should forgive you. Were they lulling him into this sense of confidence? A year later, well, it said the next year, but it looks like we were going into winter when all this stuff happened. So the next year could have been a few months later.
The bulk of the story happens in November and December, and then they let us know that he was going to get his hunting license in October.
So it was a full year later, the next fall?
It was 11 months.
So obviously Clara is traumatized from Marcus's assault and from all the allegations, because over the course of a year, her trauma stunted her growth because she didn't grow an inch over the course of that year. But did they convince him that he was then okay to get him in a position where he would be amongst them and trusting enough that one of them could blow his head off?
I mean, if we go with my theory that it was Clara's brother, then no, because he's not organizing this event. But I fully expected him to get shot in the head, that this was their opportunity to claim that it was a mistake, an accident. And in that case, something might have actually happened in this movie.
As a mother, is it worth it to you to ever let Lucas back into the fold? If Theo said, I was wrong, let him come back. Could you ever let it go?
I mean, you never not protect your child, but could you teach them something about forgiveness and acceptance?
I don't know, man.
Maybe.
That kid was kind of running around free, Danish style, at the top of the stairs. No one was watching for the minute and a half that Lucas and Clara were kicking it.
I mean, the weird moment was when she showed up at his doorstep and asked to walk Fanny, because
that was the moment of innocence. She had no idea of the seriousness of what she was doing. The fact that she was lost in the beginning. I got lost and I'm directionless and suddenly found myself here. How is that possible? The fact that she went over to just showed her obliviousness. And that's when I was like, this is not by her design. She can't be held to blame. So we are on Lucas's side, and you fully expected he was going to die.
100%.
Would you have been outraged on his behalf, or is that just the way it goes? You got dealt a bad hand, Lucas.
I would have been outraged on his behalf, but also it was a little bit set up that he didn't have a place to go. I don't know. No, I think I would have been outraged on his behalf, but I think that structurally, it seemed like an odd choice that he wasn't murdered, because it seemed like structurally as a movie, that's where it was going.
How do you feel about the fact that not only was it scripted, but actually filmed that Marcus dies?
Well, there you go.
There's a DVD extra available on YouTube where he takes one to the chest, immediately flops down, and is left there by the babbling brook in the autumn falling leaves to die.
What?
The fact that his death is seemingly an arbitrary choice, maybe there was a test audience, maybe they decided because he's innocent, maybe he should live. The fact that it does exist in the multiverse, does that change this movie for you?
Who was it that said bad guys get shot in the stomach and good guys get shot in the shoulder?
I don't know.
The chest is an interesting choice.
Well, you can't really put the squib on his head.
Sure you can.
I guess you can he gets shot in the back of the head.
Because it is a tragedy, it's an appropriate tragic end. I wouldn't be questioning the theme, or the theme would be less muddied. If it really is about fear and confusion and the bad decisions we make when we're unable to deal with those emotions logically, it would be clear that this is something that someone couldn't shake.
I felt it, and I felt the morality of it, and I felt his plight, even if it didn't adhere specifically to this idea that I'm trying to set up that teacher movies are a thing.
You're going to stick with that teacher theme, huh?
It was all about this position that he found himself in that he didn't abuse, but allows for the opportunity for abuse of that power and the strange pseudo-parental dynamic between teacher and student.
Or between, in this case, family friend and child. I mean, they had a relationship outside of the school that was very parental, or avuncular, at least, and appropriate.
Note to self, look up avuncular. But you will find that none of our teacher discussions in the month of April here at Or Whatever Movies are strictly confined to the classroom. It's all, no matter how you cut it, a personal relationship, and really how teachers in general impact the lives of their students, which is the entire reason for the relationship to begin with. How can we shape, steer, mold, influence, enhance the lives of the kids that we teach?
Look at you bringing it around, Wes.
It's my favorite kind of movie. Really effective tension throughout when kind of nothing is happening. A feat that I'm finding that fewer and fewer movies are capable of pulling off.
And my favorite kind of discussion where the movie is this jumping point for the themes, what's happening inside of these characters' minds, their dynamics, and a great way to kick off Teacher Month 2025 here at Or Whatever Movies. Did you think that Lucas should have been murdered? 818-835-0473 or whatever movies at gmail.com. Or did you think, like Mads Mikkelsen's cheekbones, that Lucas just wouldn't quit? Or whatever movies at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and
be nice to kids.
Even if they're a-holes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Geraldine Glass, a leader in the field of music as medicine, and I'm excited to share with you my newest release of healing sound, Pentatonic Visions, with Chris Scholler and Electrocast Records. Immerse yourself in ethereal realms where the harmonies of nature, tribal rhythms, and soundscapes blend with the crystal singing bowls. It's out now, streaming on all platforms.
Everyone has heard about the U.S. space program, but what is actually going on at NASA? Get the real story in 4 minutes or less with the NASA Daily Podcast from Electrocast. Join astronauts and researchers as they conduct groundbreaking experiments, work on the International Space Station, and reach for the stars. NASA Daily, your cosmic update.
Electrocast. Electrocast.